In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gift of faith, particularly that you bestowed upon these, your sons and daughters. In a special way, we thank you for the grace of baptism that you gave to those who received that sacrament, and to those who were also confirmed as well, to all of them, that they will be just renewed in the gift of the Holy Spirit. And may the body and blood of your Son, Jesus, truly just reside in them and continue to give them strength to persevere in a life of faith and of goodness. And may these sacraments continue to help them along their journeys towards heaven and be a true participation in your glory even in this world. May we make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So really, this talk tonight is not as much of a formal theological talk. It's first of all, I'd just like to hear a little bit about your reactions about things at the Easter Vigil. So I don't know if there's anything that you all like to share. And then the goal from that is I'm just going to talk a little bit about like how to kind of build on things that you've already received. And then I think next week will be even more about just trying to integrate it into the parish. Hopefully you felt enthusiastic at the moment, and certainly joy and peace. I think those are all like signs that God is doing something in you. It's not just about feelings either. I mean, it could have been a moment of tremendous grace and feeling like, wow, I'm like so close to heaven and all that. Or it may have just been a little more of a subdued reception of things, and that's how it works too sometimes. But overall, I think most people feel a lot of joy and gratitude that everything happened, and that they see that there's something real that goes beyond even just the senses of it. And of course, for many people, they're so enthusiastic to be Catholic and to kind of completed this journey that they want to do more. They want to kind of carry on what good has started. And I think just in my 4 years of being here involved with RCIA, I think there are a lot of people who are, I don't want to overstate this, but I mean reasonably happy with RCIA, maybe even very very happy with things, and pleased they went through it, happy that they are now like Catholic, and and then also just not always knowing exactly where to go from here. So that's hopefully what I can assist with just a little bit tonight. But truly, the goal of the spiritual life is to do things the right way over time. If you've been doing things the right way, like up until now, that's great. And if you're in a good spot right now, I mean, that's always something just to be very thankful to God for. It's not about, just even resting on our laurels, though. So even though maybe you're in a great spot right now, you're very pleased with things, and excited to move forward, it is about finding the joy of things over time. Sometimes, not to compare you to like teenagers or something, but sometimes there's like teenagers retreats like for high schoolers, and sometimes they have very dramatic experiences on these weekends. They kind of come in, they're like, I don't know, I don't want to be here, and then at the end of it, they're like, I love God, I love Jesus, and they've never been more alive with the faith, and then they kind of come back to school, and then over time it kind of settles back into the way things were before. And so which we're trying to kind of not just avoid, but we're not just seeking the highs of the spiritual life, and that if we're not quite at these high moments, then feel like, well, we must be doing something wrong. That's not true. Nor does it mean that even the lows are necessarily failures. Sometimes we grow the most actually when we are going through a difficult time of adversity. There are certain things that we know we have to be doing to be practicing the faith well. And if we're doing those things, we will have some good times, and we'll also have some harder times. But it is kind of finding the pace that's actually going to work for you. So, for example, saying well, I love coming to Mass, I love receiving communion that first time, I'm going to receive communion every day for the rest of my life now. That'd be great. You most certainly could. But that would be a very high standard to try to set for yourself right at the beginning. And I don't mean to discourage anybody from receiving communion as often as possible, but you could tell, like, well, what if then if you kind of fall back and you're like, every day's kind of hard, and then you keep falling back and back, and then you feel like you're letting yourself down or letting God down, worst of all. So you have to kind of find, like, well, let me try some things and see how it goes, and then you can find things that begin to work for you. And there are different stages of life. I know some of you have kids, some of you are married, some, or even at a different point of your life, perhaps you just you have more time or you have less time. I mean, and that even will change over time. Just your life is not static, so you have to kind of be open to, doing the best you can with the situation that you find yourself in. So anyway, that's just kind of a preface. Now, this one quote that Pope Francis gave about the Eucharist, actually, he was talking about it, said that it's not a prize for the perfect, but a powerful medicine and nourishment for the weak. And, I think there's a lot to reflect on with that he's saying, the Eucharist is not something we deserve, but it's something that, God gives to us because he loves us, and it's our strengthening in this life. And so that to view it as, we need that constant contact with the Eucharist. And really, it's true of just membership in the church that being Catholic isn't now a sign of, look how great I am, or I've done all this stuff, God's finally rewarded me with something, or, those who, are Catholic and are at Mass, here's your prize for your perfection. It's that we're weak, and we know that. We know that, look, without the church, where would we be? We'd be pretty directionless, and we know that our spiritual lives would fail. So just our membership in the church should be viewed that way, as it's there to support and strengthen us in what we know would be a very turbulent world. And of course, it's most definitely true of the Eucharist. So the church says that, again, there's these 5 precepts, particularly with Mass attendance and confession, that if you're doing these things, then you're staying on the right track. If for some reason one of these things is not happening, then you know that you're falling off the right track. So again, the church says you have to go to Mass every Sunday and Holy Day. And I know at least the ones that I did the little interview or meeting with before, Easter, that's one of the things that I asked you, was just like, do you understand about that? And are you going to, you're committed to live that out? And, I'm doing it I'm asking for your sake, so that now you take this responsibility on yourself. So that's true of every Catholic. Again, we did try to cover, some reasons why, like if someone is, unable to go to Mass, like what a justifiable reason might be, and if, of course, you want to talk more about it, we most definitely can. What some other exceptions are and stuff, but basically, it's every week, and if you just make that commitment, you say I'm going, it's a lot easier. Confession. So for those of you who went to confession before Easter, hopefully you haven't had too rotten of like a 2 weeks here. But for those of you who were baptized at Easter, obviously you hadn't gone to confession at that point. So I would say, really, no matter which category you fell into there, you should really try to go to confession at some point here in April. Just to, but again, this is my recommendation. It's not the church's teaching. I'm just thinking, I think this is a practical way to think about it, that if you were baptized, we need to go to confession at some point. The church says at least once per year. But, if you kind of wait, again, too long, you're going to say, well, I'll go another time. And you kind of keep, putting it off. And then you'd say, well, I've never gone before. I'm now getting nervous. And, it's easier if you just say, let me go and start to get the hang of this and get that first one out of the way when you have, less time to work with. And just as a reminder, if you were just baptized and you're going to confession, you can just say that this is my first confession and I was baptized, 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, or, whatever it is. And that way the priest will know that, okay, I'm, this is like someone who just became Catholic, and I know we only have to cover these last couple weeks. Whereas if you just say, it's my first confession, and I mean, just by your voice, anybody could tell that, like, obviously you're an adult or whatever. So, yeah, I think, like, well, you probably have a lot of years to cover here, don't you? So it's good to just make that distinction. And then if, in fact, you can always say that going forward. You don't have to, like, you're not required to say that, but you can always kind of just point out, I just became Catholic 6 months ago, and I was baptized 6 months ago, or something like that. So that way, again, you don't have to say that, but if that makes you feel more comfortable that way, the priest would know that you're just someone who's still, like, in the hang of things. You most certainly can. And then if you went to confession 2 weeks ago, you can of course go anytime you like again, but I would say go within this first month that that will help keep you going on the right track too. So your second one will be a lot easier than the first. Well, I hope, right? But that's, and then your third will get easier, and it just becomes easier to keep going that way. So again, Mass on Sundays, confession, and then the rule of the Church is to receive the Eucharist at least once per year, which technically you've now fulfilled, because it's supposed to be during Easter, which you receive communion at Easter Vigil, so that satisfies that. And technically, I guess you're good for a whole year. But, I mean, who wouldn't want to receive the Eucharist more often than that? So, in fact, it's an encouraged practice to do that more often. But you're not obligated to receive the Eucharist each time you come to Mass, just for your knowledge. It could be because you hadn't fasted for 1 hour. Perhaps you're just not in a state of like grace or readiness to do it, or whatever the reason is. But you're not obligated to receive communion at any Mass that you attend. And then the fourth precept again is obeying the Church's teachings and the laws on abstinence and fasting. So those particularly apply during Lent, with no meat on Fridays and fasting on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. So those 2 days that kind of bookend Lent. And then each Friday of the year, actually, and to be honest, most Catholics don't know this, but you're supposed to do something sacrificial on a Friday, unless it's like a very high feast day on a Friday. Then it gets dispensed for the day. But as just a way to remind us that Jesus died on Friday, and that Fridays should be at least have something like sacrificial in it. It used to be the rule was no meat on Fridays on any Friday of the year, but that's only the case during Lent. So outside of Lent, you could do that same sacrifice. I think it's kind of easier to just do it that way by saying no meat on Fridays. But but you could just substitute and do something else. So if you saw someone eating meat on a Friday, you don't have to say, "Sinner, you are a sinner." But you're supposed to do something else. Could be extra prayers, could be giving up something else, could be a work of charity, but something that you wouldn't otherwise be doing. So let's say every morning you already are saying prayers. You can't say, my Friday sacrifice is to say the prayers I'm already doing. Does that make sense? It needs to be something different. I'm actually going to pass over most of these like parish things. I think it'd be kind of better for you just to hit on those things next week. And there are actually people who will come and talk about that stuff, I think. So they'll do a better job. I'll just mess it up. So we'll kind of pass over that. I think a couple other just points to consider are really developing a prayer life. So for some of you, prayer maybe was already kind of a part of your life. Maybe you thought things were going pretty well. Maybe you were doing your best, but you had some room for improvement. Maybe even prayer is still like kind of a newer habit you're working on. I just wanted to walk you through some like spiritual schools and concepts of ideas of prayer too that can just begin to help you wrap your mind around how like people have done prayer in the past. And these are all following the examples of saints of this has worked for them. So it's to show that in the Church there's a lot of ways to do this, but these are ways that have worked before. That it's a proven path. So you don't have to try to chart your own to say like, how does like thing work? You can look to some of the examples of like past saints. So first of all, you should pray every single day. Just say no excuses there. Actually, before I forget, I want to make one other point. So one thing, and I think it's definitely true about becoming Catholic like you all have. It's true, I'm sure, in like a marriage state. It's true like at a job. It's definitely true with being a priest. You have to learn with living. You have to learn with living with our mistakes. That maybe you've had a perfect 9 days so far. Maybe you've done something wrong. I don't know. But at some point, we're all going to we all make mistakes. And part of being Catholic is not just saying like, well, I sinned, not a big deal. That's not correct. Or I didn't do something right. Oh well, it's not like these things matter anyway. That's not right either. But you just can't beat yourself up about it, if that makes sense. We truly believe in forgiveness. We believe that God does forgive us, and that He even works through our sins and failings. There's the passage from Isaiah where He says that He'll make crooked ways straight, so that He can fix things. It doesn't mean that our sin is okay, but just never to get so discouraged in anything that doesn't go right that you feel like, oh, I'm a failure. I've messed this all up. Mother Teresa said that a saint in heaven is a sinner on earth who kept trying. And she's a saint in heaven now, so there's truth to that. It just means that we are all trying. And we fail sometimes, but we're to say, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep persevering. And so learning to live with your mistakes and not get discouraged that, let's say 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, and you think, I've failed, I'm a miserable Catholic, I can't believe I messed up this badly. I mean, it can be fixed. Don't ever get so discouraged that you think like you messed this up royally and it can't be fixed. So that's just one little other caveat I want to mention. Back to prayer again, like no excuses. Just say that you're going to pray every day. There's sometimes when I work with like engaged couples, and I ask them like point blank, and they're right there next to each other. I say, do you guys like pray for each other like every day? And they're like, like, well, I mean, not like every day. Like that'd be extreme. Or they're like, well, I've like thought about it. Like I think about you every day. And you're like, well, I mean, that's good. But what about just like praying to God for somebody every day? I mean, I think you ought to be doing that. If you are married, you should be doing that. But in your own life, just for your own spiritual benefit, you have to pray every day. If you wake up and you should pray, just say even just something very small. Do something right away, and of course before you go to sleep. But you really need to be doing something over the course of the day, or else, I mean, where do you think this is going to go? I mean, it's just not, you're never going to kind of make any progress. So no one that I know has become a saint by saying like, I never prayed and I just lived my life and then I died. Like that's not a path that works. There are people who, I mean, changed right at the very end, and that's not it's not necessarily the recommended path, but the more certain path that we have is, keep trying every day, and that's a path that we know works. There's different ways to do this too, though. I think one book that is helpful and it's very practical is you can actually find it in the church, and if you wanted to, kind of borrow it or get your own copy is Magnificat. I think it's been mentioned before here, and I like it because it it's something that it's a small book. Okay, this is my opinion, it's not the church's teaching, but I think it's better to do your prayers with an actual book than just an electronic device. I mean, that can work like if needed, and if you prefer that, I mean, that's your preference. I personally think it's better to have a book because you treat it differently, and I think it resonates with you differently. So the Magnificat book is very small, it's lightweight, and it has something for each day. The readings that you could just go through for Mass, so you become more. Raina has a copy there. It has some morning and evening prayers that, like, well, how do I pray in the morning? Well, that would give you an example. That doesn't mean you have to do it that way, but at least it gives you something to know, like, well, this is kind of what how the church views prayers. So it helps you learn the language of, like, even how does the church pray? And then it gives you more familiarity with the prayers of Mass. So in the middle of it, it has all the prayers that even the priest says during Mass, which you're not allowed to read. No. But it would give you that familiarity to say, okay, this is like, I don't know if you ever like listen to a song and you never quite catch the words of something, and maybe it's a way at Mass where you're like, what exactly is the priest doing or saying? I think that would help with that. And then it's something that you get the new one each month. So it would also help you become more aware of the saints, their reflections in there. But that's just one example. There are other things. I think that's just one of the better ones. But if you find something that works better for you, go with that. I mean, do what you like, and something that is working for you. And really, just to be faithful to that, it really wouldn't take that long. You don't have to do everything that's in there, but it gives you a lot of possibilities. And to just do at least a little bit of that, that's not so unreasonable. That's not something that can't be done. There's kind of, in the traditional way of praying, there's a few different techniques that help as well. Sometimes just having the Bible in front of you, that's going to help focus you. So if you went into the church right now to pray, and you sat down or you kneeled down in the pew, you might say, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Or your mind's going to start to wander. That happens to everybody. The Bible is a good way to kind of, okay, let me, and it gives you something just to kind of chew on or think about. And you can kind of go through a passage, you go through just a few verses. And the more you do it, even like particular words might just be enough. What you don't have to do is read like pages and pages of scripture and then say, let me try to meditate on all that. It's kind of too much. It's usually better actually just to take a little bit and kind of see, to kind of meditate upon that. And let's say you're just starting to get to know the Bible a little bit better. You could go through like all of like a gospel, like just take one of the 4 gospels and kind of go through it. You could do like a letter of St. Paul or something like from the Psalms, the 150 Psalms in the Old Testament. But I wouldn't do, not because it's not good, but some of the Old Testament books, that they might be harder to do something like that with at first. The book of Revelation, you might find hard to do that with. Some of St. Paul's letters too, like Romans, very theological. Some of the other ones, there's we call them a little more pastoral or whatever. Even those might be not the best to start off with. Pick something that's doable, and the Gospels are a pretty good way to start. There's you can always pray for things too. So we call those petitions, or making a request in prayers. So saying, well, what are the people who've asked you to pray for things? What are things should be prayed about today? What are different needs that are out there? Just visiting sometimes kids in their classroom at school. Actually, I learned a lot when kids go around the room and say what they want to pray for. Some of them pray for their dogs, or like sports. I'm like, no, don't do that. Or like, their injury, and they're really not big injuries. But some of them also pray, even this, it can be the same people. Sometimes, I'm not lessening their prayers in any way, but just to say that sometimes they mention things that are, okay, perhaps not on the level of seriousness, that's not in the highest there. But sometimes then they also mention, for my mom's friend who has cancer, for my dad's brother who's very sick, or I guess their uncle. And then they have family members who are sick or die. Or they pray for each other, actually, sometimes. And it's kind of amazing. Or they pray for their brothers and sisters. Now they probably go home and like pound each other, but it's still nice to see that they pray for each other there. And you're like, wow, that's actually edifying. And then also I learned like all the family secrets. It's pretty informative. So, but even that, I think it's a good exercise for the kids, and something that it gives me something that I remember. I mean, if I hear like 100 of them in a day, I can't remember all 100 things that are said, obviously, but certain things I pick up on it then, and I remember it. So I learn from them by doing that. I think just by talking to people, then it makes you more attuned that, maybe there are a lot of needs out there I should be praying for. That people really are in need out there. It doesn't take very long to kind of talk to somebody and figure out, well, you got an issue going on, or you got a problem, or you could really use some help with prayers or something. Everybody, has something going on that they need, things to be prayed for. So petition, that's something you can always do. If you've nothing else to do, you can always pray for things. There's also a form of prayer called adoration. So you could just do your best to come, before God. You can do this at home, but it's most, I guess, I want to say properly done, but acutely done in the church, where you can, come before God and you're just adoring. You're saying, okay, God, like basically, you are great. There's that Monty Python thing of like, oh God, you are so big and I'm so small. I don't know, is that theological? But there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, like, God, you're great and I'm not. There's a goodness to not just like denigrating yourself, but saying God is good. I mean, and He's all good, and He only gives us good things, and He's eternal. And just thinking about those qualities about God that far surpass even our best understanding. I mean, that gives you something to praise God, to adore Him. And you then learn, again, not just to adore yourself, which is a work in progress. And then there's finally thanksgiving, just saying, I'm grateful for these things. And that's kind of like petitions, but you're praying in gratitude for the good things of your life, the blessings that you have. And that's a good practice to do every day, just especially when you're going through a harder time, or frustrated by things, or feeling like life isn't kind of going the way you want, or whatever else. But it helps to pray in thanksgiving and to say, I do have a lot to be thankful for in my life. And maybe not everything is ideal, but then it gives you the proper perspective in how to deal with, kind of adversity. There's also this universal call to holiness that, it means that everybody is supposed to become holy, to become full of God's grace, to become a saint in heaven. That's the mission for everybody. And it's universal, and it means we view our relationship with God in terms of a friendship. And friendships have to be cultivated and deepened, and, friendships also then look differently for different people. So you just think of some people who are your friends. Some of us don't have friends, but for those of you who do, that you don't have the same kinds of friendships with everybody. Like someone like, this person who's your friend, like you get along in all these ways. This person who's your friend, it's still a friendship, but it's not the exact same friendship as like this one. And, God then has a personal friendship with us. And so just to look at someone else and say, well, Father Barnes prays that way, I better do the exact same thing he does. Okay, don't do that. That's probably not a good model anyways, but you're not trying to just be like somebody else. Nor you're saying like, I just want to, it has to look exactly like you do things. That's not true either. The saints give us, models of ways of life that we know has worked and are worth imitating, but not to the point where you lose your personal, like, your person in this. That this is still a personal relationship with God that we're talking about. It's not just fitting into kind of a mold. I mean, God made you anyway, so He knows who you are and knows the kind of friendship He wants to have with you. So that's what we're going for here, is to really feel like you're loved in a personal way by God. That's, again, a lifelong project. Now here's just some, pathways that have worked for others in the past. There are others, but maybe these are just some principles to keep in mind. So whatever is going to work for you, you need to keep these things in mind. And I think it'll just kind of, so if you deviate from these, you're probably not going on the right path. So first of all, it means always following the moral laws. So a good spiritual life does not mean like breaking the commandments. Your spiritual life can't be I'm going to break all the commandments. Okay, that's not a spiritual life. Nor is if it's justifying things that are just objectively wrong, okay, then that's not a good practice either. Something is not right. Every tradition and every pathway always has humility to be a part of it. So if what you're contemplating or what you're doing is just making you very prideful, well, something is not right there either. So everything always comes down to humility before God. And it should make us aware that we do have room for improvement. If we ever start getting to a point where you feel like I've pretty much perfected my spiritual life, I'm not sure I could get better, something is not right there either. There's I say this complementarity of knowledge and mystery. So every person is getting to know more and more about God, more about the faith, but it also means the more you learn, you start to say, gosh, this is really a big mystery. And so it's both at the same time, that you're coming to know things better, but then you say, boy, this is a huge mystery. Just with like being a priest, I remember maybe my first year in the seminary, there was this talk given by this priest, and he said, like, look, it's a big mystery why you're called to be a priest. We could talk about the theology of things, we could talk about the practical side of things, but when you get right down to it, it's like, well, why does God choose you? Like, and then kind of thinking to yourself, like, why does God choose me? And it becomes a mystery. Like, God didn't have to do that. But I believe that like He did and chose me for a specific reason. And more, it becomes like, yeah, like God really did like choose me, and that this is like the pathway for me. And I see more and more like, yeah, this is like why God like put me on this earth. But it also becomes a bigger mystery of like, like why did it have to be this way? In a sense, like it didn't have to be this way. I guess we say it's both. You're knowing things better, but there's just a deeper awareness of like, this is a pretty amazing reality that we have in the Catholic faith. All good spiritual practices are always consistent with the Bible and the Church's teachings too. So use those things to make sure they're guiding you properly. They kind of allow for guideposts here to say, if you jump over this line, you're not in a good place anymore. Or if you cross this fence here, then that's not a good spot you want to be in either. It then allows us to say, but there can be differences. Like people can align a little bit differently, kind of within these parameters. Also, every spiritual life has to deal with suffering in some way. So if you're just trying to avoid suffering, you're always going to be frustrated. And if you're never going to deal with the question in the mystery of like, why do I have to suffer? Why do I see other people suffer? I wanted things to work out differently, and they have not. Or whatever it is, there's all kinds of suffering out there. Physical, emotional, psychological. And some of it, is more acute or chronic, but suffering's a part of everybody's life. And so it has to be part of our spiritual lives, and we have to kind of deal with it. So anyway, here's some pathways that kind of worked for people in the past. So in the earliest church, it was thought that the highest expression, which is still true, the highest expression of living one's faith was to be a martyr. And in fact, there were a lot of martyrs in the early church. That, okay, people like yourselves, got to know Christ better. They wanted to be his follower. And of course, it was illegal, and so some people were killed. So pretty easy path there to heaven. You get martyred, you go to heaven. Problem solved. But when Christianity became more accepted, and then martyrdom, I mean, it still happens today, but it became like, well, I guess we just can't seek to be martyred anymore. We have to kind of appreciate, well, I guess we are in this world and have to kind of deal with the fact that, well, we're going to have 70, 80, 90 years or whatever in this life, and we probably better make good use of our time. So one of the initial reactions to that is, well, if you're not going to kill me in this world, I guess I better flee from this world and all the temptations in it, and the potential for sin out there, and I'm going to live in the desert, literally, so that there's no more distractions. I can focus on prayer, and it'll already be like getting me towards heaven, and I can just, I can do that and become holy, kind of a profoundly aesthetic. And that's what some people did in the early church. You don't need to do that, but if you feel called to, I guess we could talk about it. But in some sense, it's a good practice for everybody to say, that again, this world is not our final home. Being able to detach ourselves from some of the things of this world and to kind of have, that desert mentality, at least a little bit, is good. The church has a few ways of insisting on that, like during Lent and so forth. But for the most part, it's kind of up to you to put that action into plan. So that's, you should give that thought and consideration for how you can do that in your life in some respect to keep you from being too attached to the things of this world. There was another response in the early centuries of kind of forming monasteries, where it was started by St. Benedict, and so they would come together, groups of men or groups of women, and they would live together and they would pray together. And their motto was, ora and labora, just pray and work. And that by faithfully doing your prayers in a very structured way and doing your work each day in kind of a structured way, that would lead to your sanctification, which it does. Now, for most people, that exact form is not, again, going to work in your life. But having the awareness that in some way, I think we do need to have like a routine or some like structure, and that it helps that we know that people who are want to be successful with things are disciplined with their time and use their time well. So in some sense, that's a good way to view this too, like how can I put a little bit of that into my life too, and just to believe that it's those daily routines that maybe nothing seems to be going on by doing it today and tomorrow and the next day and over, but it adds up over time and it makes a difference. And so that stability helps. Kind of jumping ahead a little bit to like the time of St. Francis, he came up with a different kind of spirituality that just emphasized a simplicity of life. So, Franciscans in St. Francis, of which there are 1 million Franciscans in the world today, and if you ask them, like, what is Franciscan spirituality, you probably have about 1 million answers. But they all kind of model themselves off of St. Francis, which is not just love of animals, but there is a similarity there, from like detachment of things, but truly kind of a poverty in the sense of, they live more in the world than just like, they're not just living in a cave in the desert, but they still have that like call of like kind of being poor and saying, we're going to have simple lives, kind of poor lives, and see the riches in this world of being, works of charity and doing good for other people. So I'd say in some way that's not a bad model to follow either. Of, sometimes simplifying your life is a great way to become holier, and just saying, let me cut out the things that don't need to be there, or let me esteem kind of the things I value the most is doing good for other people, or taking care of people supposed to take care of, or things like that. Around the same time, there was someone named Saint Dominic, who is kind of similar to St. Francis, but he had a the motto for the Dominicans is the Order of Preachers, and that's why after their sometimes religious priests and so forth, they have letters after their names, and that's kind of what it stands for sometimes. So like Dominicans, it's OP, and so like Order of Preachers, all that comes from Latin, but so he decided, well, that to kind of respond to the needs of the world at the time, that there was a lot of people who just simply did not know the faith, and they were being led astray by people who were telling them things that were false and leading them to believe things that were not true. So he saw what we need to do is also be poor, because the people who were trying to counteract these teachings, they had kind of worldly lives, and so people did not find their witness to be that credible. They said, like, why should we follow you? Because these other people who were preaching these things, they had such radical lives of asceticism. They said, boy, this person must be telling the truth, because look at the kind of life they're living. So St. Dominic said, we got to live lives like that and then preach the truth. And so he believed firmly in education, in study, in prayer, that it would help them to engage these things in these matters. So if you want to call that like kind of an evangelist, that's exactly what they did. Dominicans today, I consider them on a whole to be very well educated, people who read a lot. I will get lost listening to them, well, sometimes, but I highly esteem them and respect them, for that reason, that they believe that through study that helps them to become holy too. And so in some way that makes sense too. I mean, shouldn't you have some kind of intellectual growth in your life too, to spend some time actually reading about things and kind of growing more? And for some of you, you might be more inclined towards that. Anyway, maybe some of you that's not as exciting, but at least it has to be part of everyone's life in some way. There's also kind of a Carmelite tradition of this kind of and so anybody that who's like a Carmelite, and this would kind of focus a little more on me and like Mother Teresa. She would kind of fall into this category a little bit of it's kind of the spiritual life and dealing through things of like through dark times or through struggle, doing works of charity, but doing it in a way that's like really motivated through like sincere and heartfelt prayer, and even doing it in very small matters. So I think if you looked at and studied Mother Teresa's life, you would see a lot of those qualities in her life. Another one who falls in that category is John of the Cross, where he has this thing he called the dark night of the soul. And for all of us, like, that's not where we're at in our spiritual lives. But what he's getting at is that sometimes, though, you can go through hard times where you feel like God is absent from you, or you feel like things are not going your way, or that you're going through a very hard time, and you have to persevere through those moments. You have to seek God even more deeply. It's like saying, I'm going to double down with my prayers now. Now that things have gotten hard, I'm not going to pray less, I'm going to pray more. I think it was Mother Teresa who said, like when I have a busy day, I have to spend an hour in prayer. If I got this much stuff to do, I know I need to spend an hour in prayer. And then she said, and if I have a really busy day, I spend 2 hours in prayer. That's a lot of discipline there. But what she's getting at again is not that you have to spend 2 hours in prayer each day, but that busyness isn't an excuse. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here. I mean, we all can do a more faithful job of responding to God, even in times of busyness or darkness or adversity. Many of you might be familiar with Jesuits or St. Ignatius. So he's the founder of the Jesuits, and sometimes known as Society of Jesus, and kind of a clever name, I guess, right? Society of Jesus. But those who were followers of Jesus, and they believe in a kind of radical obedience. I mean, like fulfilling the will of God in your life. And discernment, that's another gift they've offered the church a lot, is how to properly discern things. They don't have the monopoly on that, but just they have a lot of retreat techniques. And there's Ignatian, like prayer styles, Ignatian retreats. And it's if you follow kind of the path of St. Ignatius, it can help you to make a difficult decision, or if you're trying to know the will of God in your life in some profound way, there's this is a pathway that's worked. And at one point in your life, or in all of our lives, we have to discern things like, well, what is the will of God in my life right now? And it may not be anything dramatic at this moment, but there could be something in the future, and that this is a pathway that helps with that too. One other thing that I'll mention is a little more recent, but his name was St. Francis de Sales, and so there's Salesian spirituality that comes from him. In a great book, which I think any of you would like, is called Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales. And he talks about things that I think in a way you would find to be very relatable and understandable, like how to live a good holy life. And he talks about, well, if you're like a bishop, this is probably how your life's got to look. If you're a priest, if you're like a mother, a father, husband, wife, single, kind of old, young, in other words, you have to grow in holiness in your state of life, whatever that is. And kind of it's very practical in that way. And so finding ways to grow in holiness in any state of life, that's very Salesian. It's not about, again, like, well, holy. The Pope just released something today, and he actually just uses these exact words, essentially, of holiness is not just something for like a bishop or a priest or somebody who's like, dedicate their life to God in that way. It's meant for everybody. And the truth is that many of the holiest people in the church are not priests or religious in some way. They're not any different than you in some respects. They could have a life that you'd say, like, their job's kind of ordinary, their family's, this way, or they wouldn't have anything about themselves that you'd say necessarily would distinguish them, like, oh, they're like the life. But the more you get to know them, or the more you learn, you figure out, actually, they have a profound holiness in their life. And so holiness, again, is meant for everybody. Then the final one I'll mention is a more recent saint. His name is Saint Jose Maria Escriva, and he was most recently made a saint, and maybe you're familiar with like Opus Dei or heard of Opus Dei. That means like the work of God, and they focus on you can become holy through your daily work. That I know many of you, maybe all of you, have jobs right now, and through your job, it's saying it's not just like well, if you have like a job like a doctor, it's kind of easy to see how you're helping people, I guess, hopefully. Or like a nurse, you see how you're taking care of people. Or like a teacher, well, it's clear that hopefully you're doing some sort of good in the world. But you might think, well, I'm just doing fill in the blank here. I'm not doing anything spectacular. I guess my work is lousy or something. And that is not what this saint taught. It's that you can become holy if you do your work with diligence and care, and it's something inside of you that no one can take away, which is doing it and offering it to God. There's this kind of old expression that usually like older people tell younger people when there's an inconvenience in life, and it means offer it up. And what that means is oh, it's kind of cold out there, oh, offer it up. Whereas the kids saying like, I'm cold, can you give me a jacket? Nope, offer it up. It's hot, offer it up. No water, or can we go home? I'm bored. Offer it up. It kind of works for everything. So if you're a parent, you want a technique, and your kids are complaining, just say, offer it up, and they'll learn to hate it. But it's the truth, and that's no one likes to be told that, but it is the absolute truth. And what it means is, instead of just complaining about things or kind of like staying down here and whatever it is, or even to saying like, my homework is hard, my job is hard today. You wake up in the morning and you think, oh, I'm tired, and I'm going to think about how tired I am, all day long, or I don't want to go to work today, or I don't want to do this one task, or I don't want to call this person back, or I don't want to. That's kind of true for everybody in some way, right? That there's something about like your day that is not going to just be all pleasant and comfort. So you offer it up to God. And if you learn to do that, you can become a holier person, because then what you've done is you've traded that moment of kind of selfishness or unpleasantness or whatever else, and you've now made it into an opportunity for holiness. You've flipped it. And if you can get that down, let me know how you did it. No, but it actually makes a big difference. It changes your daily life. But the strange thing is that none of the exteriors may look too different, but it's the interior that needs to change. So that's pretty much the things I just wanted to go through. The rest of this is just, you can skip over that. But I talked for a long time here. But I wanted to just get through things, and I didn't want to keep you all till 9. So that's kind of why I just fly through it without any breaks. So I think next week could be a great thing to come back to, because it'll help you to just number one, just appreciate a lot of things that are going on at St. Mary's. Just not everything, but it'll give you a deeper insight to help you to consider now that this is like your spiritual home, like how you might contribute or make this a better place, and then just kind of consider these things like over time. That this is introducing things. You don't have to figure it all out right now, but you keep trying, and so that's what this is for. It's just to kind of help you to kind of launch a little better and kind of keep the good momentum going. So maybe if anyone wants to talk afterwards, we can talk and whatever. But I don't want to keep you all too late. It's Easter, so I guess I can't just say offer it up, right? But we can just finish with a prayer, and I'll hang around and be able to talk to people. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Heavenly Father, please once again look kindly on these your sons and daughters that you've renewed by the grace of baptism and confirmation and Holy Communion. Keep them strong in the reception of these sacraments. Keep them close to the heart of your Son, and through the intercession of their confirmation saints and all the angels and saints. May they continue to grow in knowledge and love of you, and feel secure and safe in your love. And we make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.